What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the graveyard, and happy Halloween to all of you Necromancer endurers out there. I am bringing you Army of the Dead 2.0, and it is going to be probably my most anticipated, yet my second leading build as far as how strong builds go on this channel, but definitely something that is very class unique, very fun to play, and it really utilizes the summoning capabilities of the Necromancer. I hope you enjoyed that little theme here, definitely taking in the role play of Halloween and just the way the class operates in general around this time of year. So happy Witches Festival. Hope you guys are farming, getting all the mats that you want, all the materials that you find in the plunder skulls. So let's jump right into the build. Without further ado, this is Army of the Dead 2.0. Let's get started. Taking a look at our character sheet here, Unbuffed stats, we have 30,000 max magic, very juicy max stats overall, getting to 30,000 health as close as we possibly can. Thankfully, we are no longer a vampire, so that health recovery is pretty much always above 1,000 when we have at least a summon active. So that's either your Arcanist or your Ghost, and then magic and stamina recovery will go up respectively as well. Max stam isn't super important, but definitely core combat skills are something to remember. You know, dodge rolling and sprinting are a big thing, but with our armor, we aren't going to be dipping too much into stamina, so stay tuned for that. Spell damage, it looks a little doesn't look that great on paper, but it definitely goes up with the sets that we're wearing, so don't pay too much attention to it. Spell critical will as well. Spell penetration will probably be around the 14 to 15k mark once we are fully buffed up. And then physical and spell resistances on the back bar will be 27 to 30k depending on what burst heal you use. And I will get into that when we get into the skills here. Critical resistance, we're going to see just shy of 4,000, so that's going to be very useful for the light armor that we are wearing. Yes, we are wearing light armor, but more to come with that later. 58 points into max magic, 6 points into health. We are using the Smoked Bear Haunch and the Atronach Mundus Stone. One thing to mention that is pretty important for this build, we are a Khajiit now. I switched to Khajiit just specifically for the critical damage and how critical damage and critical ratings act on Necro with its Death Kneel passive. So for those that don't know, the Death Kneel passive gives you 10% critical chance for each Gravelord ability you have listed on your bar. We are rocking 3 at the moment, so we're getting 30% on top of the 20 that we already have, giving us 50% critical chance, which is really good for healing and critical damage. With that being said, our critical damage is sitting at 32%, buffed up with Race Against Time. So overall, we're going to be hitting about 82% more critical damage, and you can definitely feel that the lower the health are, because the lower the enemy's health is, the higher crit chance we get. So I will demonstrate the combo after we do the sets, but just trying to get all the numbers out of the way first. If you need to go back and replay this video, go ahead. But these are the advanced stats if you wanted to take a look at that. I can show you with Race Against Time what the critical damage and the critical healing is. So you can see we're at 32% for the crit damage. And then if we scroll down, we're at 22% crit healing. And then these will go up as well with your allies' bonuses and whatnot. Don't pay too much attention to the healing taken and healing done, because of course that's going to change with different skills and how it operates in Battlegrounds versus Battle Spirit, and no CP and CP. Alright, so jumping into our skill sheet here. First up, this is the Army of the Dead, so you know it. We have Skeletal Arcanist. This got buffed this patch, so now we have the Major Brutality, Major Sorcery, increasing our weapon and spell damage by 20%. And then, of course, every 2 seconds, this little guy is going to be giving off about 1,600 shock damage to all other enemies nearby. It's a nice AoE skill. I know the damage isn't that impressive up front, but definitely having the ability to have Major Brutality and Sorcery on the bar in a class skill makes a big difference. Mystic Siphon, this is a awesome skill for a couple of reasons. I know I go over this in a lot of my videos, but for those that are new to the channel or just trying out Necromancer for the first time, this does a lot in one package. So this is a great utility skill for it being free right up front, doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is just find a corpse on the ground, hit this button, and you're going to be dealing 19,500 shock damage over 20 seconds while you are siphoning the corpse. Also, you're going to have Major Savagery and Prophecy for 20 seconds, increasing your weapon and spell critical rating by 2629. So this is important because when you are siphoning a corpse, you now have an increased spell critical for weapon and spell damage. Your increased spell critical for your damage and your healing. So it goes both ways. You also get 150 health, magic, and stamina recovery while siphoning the corpse. So that's going against... or it's boosting your recoveries across the board, so that's really nice. This also benefits you not being a vampire anymore, so you really feel the healing recovery aspect of Battle Spirit now that you don't have to worry about vampirism. So usually with vampirism, I think it's about 70% reduced healing, but we don't have to worry about that anymore because now we have about 1,100 to 1,300 health recovery. And then in Battle Spirit, that cuts in half to 50%, so around 700 to 800. And then just by having it slotted on your bar, you get increased 3% damage. So 4 things in one utility skill. It's definitely not ever leaving the bar. So, and it's also a Gravelord ability, so it's going to give you the Death Kneel passive, another 10%. Empowering Grasp. Used to use it, I brought it back. This is also getting buffed next patch. Not this morph, I should say. The other morph is no longer going to have the crowd control. It's going to have increased damage and giving you a corpse at the end of the 3rd circle. But on this particular build, since we are utilizing the summons of the Necromancer's toolkit, it is very important to have this one, and I'll explain why. So each area applies Minor Maim, just like the other morph. It empowers your allies. It doesn't have to necessarily worry about that as much because Empower is only affecting monsters rather than enemy players. But the important thing here to take away is the damage and healing of your summons are increased by 1,000. So each effect lasts 10 seconds. Now, why is this important? So, when you summon one of your summons, and it takes priority over which summon you do first. Now, whether this be your Blast Bones, your Skeletal Archer, or your Ghost, whichever you summon first, that's what's going to take priority for Grave Grasp. So since I summoned the Arcanist first here, you can see how he's glowing blue. He's going to be doing 1,000 increased damage on top of his 1592 tooltip. This will also go up with one of the sets that we are wearing, so we're going to have pretty much 25% increased damage in our summoning skills. So Skeletal Arcanist, Blighted Blast Bones, Animate Blast Bones, these are all going to get a juicy buff from just this this skill and one of the sets that we are wearing, not including the spell damage buffs that we get too. So, for those that don't know, this also does 3 different crowd control. The first circle that you see, it summons 3 circles on the ground here. First one, snaring the enemy. Second one, immobilizing the enemy. And the 3rd circle, stunning them. You can stack all of these in one little corridor and hit everybody with all 3 crowd control abilities in one go. Super effective in BGs, especially in tight spaces. Everybody gets hit at the same time. Unfortunately, this morph does not do damage. However, it's going to be benefiting us that it affects our summons, because basically that's what this build is all about. You're going to be raising the dead left and right, keeping those buffs up and doing your rotations, and you will see how everything synergizes together very nicely. Next up, our spammable Force Pulse. Does great cleave damage, especially since we are utilizing a lot of status effects here. So 2314 Flame Frost and Shock damage, and then up to 2 by enemies, they will take almost 8,000 additional magic damage if they are already afflicted with a status effect. Everybody in this game has a status effect on them. You could just walk off the platform in BGs and you're hit with a status effect. So when people are grouped up, of course you're hitting them with this. All you got to do is just pepper someone once. See how that beam is tethering between these two? He's taking the additional cleave damage from Force Pulse. So Very useful skill. It is kind of a flex spot, but it's not at the same time because this is going to benefit our monster set that we are wearing. But if you wanted to use like Crushing Shock, you could. That's why I said it's a flex. I prefer Force Pulse because you're going to be benefiting the cleave damage more from it. It does cost a little bit more, but it's really not that noticeable because we are wearing all light armor. So next is Blighted Blast Bones. This is bread and butter burst damage for the Necromancer. Summon our little green skeleton here. It's going to do major and minor defile. Hit them with a burst 12,000 disease damage, and then it's going to give us a corpse, which is very useful for our tether. And then Animate Blast Bones when you get 320 ultimate. I know it seems quite a lot, but it's really not once we show what the sets are. You summon 3 Blighted Blast Bones in the circled area for each corpse that you have on the ground. I mean, 1 Blast Bones for each corpse, so 3 total, and then you can summon your 4th on your own cast, giving you 4 total, hitting everybody with massive, massive AoE damage. Jumping into the back bar here, we are... Why does it keep going to champion points? Jumping into the back bar here, we are using Healing Soul. You can use this or Resistance Flesh. I prefer this just because it seems to, for me at least, benefit more than the increased resistances, just because the Major Vitality really helps out a lot now that we are no longer a vampire. I chose the Druid signature script for the increased in stamina recovery, just because casting this, you're going to get 600 stamina back, so why not? It's going to help out with dodge rolling and sprinting. And then, of course, the burst heal, too. Spirit Guardian, this is going to give us another corpse. It's also a little ghost that takes 10% of the damage. This is basically major protection built into this skill, but it's a unique buff. So that is basically adding another 10% on top of major protection. So these two will stack. And then, of course, it gives us a little heal over time, and it's reduced cost by our Summoner's Armor. Raced Against Time, giving us a major expedition buff, minor force for 20 seconds, so this is going to increase our movement speed, making us very fast. We like to get around the battlefield as quickly as we possibly can. You know how I always say, get in, get out, reset the fights, try to keep enemies at a distance, especially with Force Pulse builds too. You don't want to be locked down in close quarters, or else that's how you're going to get beat down. You want to try to keep the gap between you and the enemy as much as possible. Being in light armor, you're going to take that increased melee damage, so Racing Against Time helps us eliminate that. It's also our snare and immobilization removal tool, so keeping this up passively, I know it's muscle memory related, but if you want to try and do this every 4 seconds, you're going to eat through your magicka. But you definitely don't have to spam it that much. It's nice to, hit it once, try to do your combo, and then if you can dodge roll, get out of the fights, and then reset your buffs, and then spam it again, just to keep you from rooted. Next up, Summoner's Armor. This is going to give you major and minor resolve, giving us just about 10,000 more resistances. Super nice. Reducing the cost of our Blast Bones, Scaly Mage, and Spirit Mender. We are using all 3, so we benefit this skill totally. And then this will also give us a corpse at the end of its duration, and it lasts 30 seconds, so that was a nice buff there. Elemental Susceptibility. This is our flex spot. So you can either use this one, or you can use the Boneyard. I prefer this one just because it's free. You don't have to worry about resource recoveries with this because you can spam it. It does good upfront damage, and it's going to be giving them the chilled, concussed, and burning status effects. I know everybody and their mom runs this, but if you did want to, you could use the Boneyard. However, the Boneyard only lasts for 10 seconds. Now, the Boneyard does give you minor vulnerability, and it's going to persist on them for 4.1 seconds after they leave it. It's not a bad choice. I'm not saying that it's the weaker of the two. I am saying it is going to cost you resources, and it's going to be harder to keep major breach on them because of the duration. So in total, 10 seconds plus the 4.1 when they leave, so maybe 14 seconds total if you can hit it right. But the benefit is this is single target versus the Boneyard being AoE. So if you look, both of these guys, if I place this Boneyard on them, they both have major breach on them now. And then, of course, 4.1 seconds after the boneyard ends, or if they end up leaving it for whatever reason, that is an option. But, like I said, it costs resources and it doesn't last as long. This is more single target focused, making it a little bit more difficult for AoE potential. And I only say that because you have to persistently cast this on individuals, or else they will not have it on them at all times. If you time your burst right with your Grave Grasp, depending on where your boneyard is, if you put your Skelly Archer on the back bar and put your boneyard on the front bar, you can put that on there and then put your boneyard at the end of that third circle, CCing them into the boneyard, and you're setting yourself up for massive damage. It's one playstyle that I have used. It does work, but it's not as efficient, I think, as Ally Susceptibility. Plus, Ally Susceptibility is going to benefit our Monster Helm. And then, last but not least, we are using Temporal Guard just for the minor protection. You could use something else if you wanted, say the Ravenous Goliath. It's going to increase your healing done by 2%. It's a little bit noticeable, but in order to really get the benefits out of that, you'd have to put on like a Resto Staff and then maybe drop, I don't know, the Ghost or Ellie Sus for like a Resto Staff ability. You could do a heavy attack, get the major mending, but I just think putting this here, you know, forgetting about it, getting the minor protection passively, it benefits you more. Plus on an Ice Staff, we're going to have increased resistances in CP, and then blocking is going to be reduced by 36%. Is it 36% or is it the amount of damage you can block? I don't remember. It is reduces the cost of blocking by 36%, increases the amount of damage you can block by 20%. So a little bit more tankier with an Ice Staff. However, you'll have a slightly more healing with a Resto Staff. So you kind of have to pick or choose which is more important to you. I prefer to use the Ice Staff. All right, moment of truth here. Let's jump into the gear. First up, you guessed it, Ritualist. Unleash Ritualist. This is found in the Cauldron, one of my favorite sets in the game, particularly for Necromancer. I've used this before, but I never really released it in a build just because I couldn't figure out how to make it work and its max potential. So, we're using a charged staff, and that's going to apply status effects by 235%. So we're running a poison damage glyph on this. This is going to proc very frequently on top of the chilled, burning, and concussed. And it's going to give us the 2, 3, and 4 piece maxed magicka. That's why we have a 30,000 max magicka pool. Then the 5-piece tooltip, dealing damage to an enemy applies Ritualist Mark for 10 seconds. Enemies with Ritualist Mark take an additional 16% damage from your summoned pets. 16% damage. So, this is not just AoE, single target, this is AoE as well. So, when you see somebody with a little dot above their head, and you can see their debuff, it looks like a bear claw, that is Ritualist Mark. So when you have a summon available, they're going to be doing 16% increased damage. See how he doesn't have one yet? Because we didn't damage him. I know that the pet is, but it doesn't count towards Ritualist Mark. But if we light attack them, now he has it. Now he has it. It can stack on multiple people. It's not a single target duration. So when you get everybody hit with, you know, your blasties and you got a bunch of AoE damage going on here, they're going to take a 16% increased damage. On top of the 1,000 bonus damage from your Grave Grasp, on top of the 3% damage that you get from your Mystic Siphon. So when these all combine together, you can do the math if you don't believe me. Skeletal Arcanist, let me resummon him here. 1752 shock damage, plus an additional 1,000 damage from your Empowering Grasp. That's per tick, by the way. It's not 1,000 total. So you're increasing this skill's damage by 10,000 just by hitting Empowering Grasp. Plus the 16% from Ritualist Mark. So this now turns into a 30,000 DPS dot just by activating it. And that's only when Empowering Grasp is affecting it. Empowering Grasp also affects Blighted Blast Bones. It affects Animate Blast Bones. It affects the healing on your Spirit Guardian. It's going to be doing all of this every 10 seconds to whichever summon you do first. Remember, I said it takes priority over the first summon. So the way you're going to want to set this up is you can hit your Skeletal Arcanist and then hit your Empowering Grasp. Now he has that on him for 10 seconds. He's going to be doing 1,000 damage for the next 10 casts on this, and you can start your Blast Bones rotation with Force Pulse and CCing them. So when you switch to the back bar and you hit your armor buff, now that you hit your Ghost, this just fell off. When you hit your Grave Grasp, now your Ghost is going to have the empowering extra healing. So if you need that, you know, you're in a corridor here, or if you're running away, you're kiting somebody, and you're dropping health quickly, and you want to get some increased healing, remember to prioritize your summon first. Hit that Ghost, and then once you hit the Ghost, you can know who's prioritized by the animation glowing. So see how he's glowing blue? Now he has 1,000 increased healing to his tooltip, and that is about 20, almost 3,000 on top of the 10% damage reduction. So pretty good for a skill that is going to provide some serious damage mitigation, but giving you some good healing on top of it now too. So which one did I summon first? I summoned the Skeletal Arcanist, so now he takes priority over the Grave Grasp. Some people think that they both get it, but that's not the case. It does really... what am I trying to say? You really have to pay attention to the way that you cast things, because most people will start off a fight with Blast Bones, and that's okay because, you know, the Blast Bones is getting the extra 1,000 damage, but you're really going to benefit by hitting this on your Skeletal Archer because of the duration of the Archer and the way that the Archer's damage is output. The Archer's damage is AoE. I'm sorry, the Arcanist's damage is AoE, and you will benefit having that because once you summon the Blast Bones, then you hit your Grave Grasp, it's one and done. Now you have to wait 10 seconds for that to take effect on one of your summons again. See how the number at the bottom is ticking down? Now you can summon your Skeletal Arcanist and hit your Grave Grasp and see how it took priority over him. That's basically how you're going to set up your rotation. I know it seems confusing, but I mean, literally after one Battlegrounds game, I got the hang of it, and I feel like anybody can too. It just takes some practice. Back into the sets here. Back bar, Rallying Cry. I know, another meta set, but you know what? It's okay, because it's Necromancer, so we can get away with it. So, this is defending. Defending is going to just basically buff our resistances as much as we can while we are on the defense. Enchant doesn't really matter, that just happens to be the one that I have. Definitely keep the Ice Staff for the elemental susceptibility, or else you won't be able to use it. That's why I said it's a flex spot, because if you do use a Resto Staff, you can still use the Boneyard and get your Major Breach. Now, this is where the build gets interesting, and this is why it is the 2.0. So we are using Baron Zodorus. Baron Zodorus is a very overlooked set in my opinion. So the one piece is going to give you 548 max magic, stam, and health, but the two piece here is what is going to help out the build tremendously in our dynamic ult generation. So applying a status effect to an enemy grants you a stack of Zodorus' Ambition for 10 seconds, up to 3 stacks max. When you gain 3 stacks, the stacks are removed and you gain 4 ultimate. On gaining ultimate, you can no longer gain additional stacks for 1 second. So the cooldown is virtually nothing. And the way that this works is with a charge staff, you're going to be proccing this all the time. So I'm going to waste my ultimate here. I have 500 ultimate. We're just going to get rid of it here. We're going to come back to these guys here. All I'm going to use is Force Pulse. And I want you to pay attention to the way that I'm light attacking. So your light attack weaving in between Force Pulse, and just watch how the ult just basically just shoots up. So you're getting that 4 ultimate on top of the 3 ultimate every 1 second. And then this, of course, will carry when you have multiple enemies with multiple status effects. So just by talking to you, we're already at 100 ultimate. And you can see how quickly it can go up when you're using other skills too that generate ultimate. Whether you're siphoning a corpse, or if you're using Dead and Pained if you want on the back bar instead of the Ghost, because Dead and Pained gives you the major protection, which is another 10%. So you could get away without using the Ghost, but I'd rather have the Ghost just because of the theme of the build. But just talking here, we went from 100 to 156, not even attacking, and it's still going up. So you can see how quickly we can get our animate blast bones, and it's pretty much about every 25 seconds if you are adamantly, you know, light attack weaving and definitely keeping up your buffs with the corpse siphoning abilities. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at our skills here, Mystic Siphon, which one is it? Living Death, maybe? Yeah, you get every 16 seconds you get 10 ultimate when you consume a corpse. So that on top of, you know, the light attack weaving and Baron's Odorous and all the status effects, you're going to be getting a bunch of ultimate in a short amount of time, which is why we are utilizing Animate Blast Bones. Back into the gear here. Curious of the trainee, heavy trainee piece for extra health. You know, it's kind of how it is these days. And then of course medium shoulder piece for the Baron's Odorous, and light armor on the rest of the body pieces. So we're using 5 light armor, 1 heavy, 1 medium for the Undaunted passives. Sea Serpent's Coil is our mythic of choice. This is how we're going to be getting massive damage for our huge area of effect burst potential here. So when you have the Sea Serpent's Rebuke, we have 40% snare applied to ourselves, which is why we have Swift on all of our pieces. But the main important thing here is we get Major Berserk and Major Courage, so increased 10% damage. That's going across the board for all of our summons on top of the other multipliers that I mentioned before, and then we are also going to get 430 weapon and spell damage. Not only is this also helping our offensive toolkit, but it's increasing our healing as well. And then Ritualist Ring and Rallying Cry Ring to finish off the tooltip here. I have something exciting here to show you at the end of the video. I will turn the camera on and give you a little preview as to what's to come. Definitely going to mention the little store that we're going to be opening up soon. So if you want to get your hands on some of these, definitely let me know. I will have a website available for you to order from soon, but when that will be, I don't necessarily have a time frame, but more to come with that. Alright guys, that is the gear here. Let's jump into the champion points. If you wanted to go into CP, I am using Fighting Finesse, Force of Nature with all those status effects, Master at Arms, Backstabber. You could switch this to Bulwark if you wanted to, just to have some more resistances if you feel like your critical damage is enough. I like Backstabber just because, you know, the speed alone, we're able to basically flank a lot of the times. That's kind of like how I play too. So you kind of have to adjust your CP to your playstyle. Not everything that I run might be good for you. So CP is the beautiful spot because you don't have to change the build itself. You can just adapt to your playstyle with the champion points. Red Tree, Celerity, just to give us increased speed. These are actually supposed to be different. I was trying something else with a shield, but I didn't like how it played out. So we're going to switch this back to Survival Instincts. So when you have a status effect on you, your core combat skills are reduced by 25%. So that's dodge rolling, blocking, sprinting, all that fun stuff, which is reduced already because we're in light armor other than blocking. But it definitely helps out with an ice staff being equipped too, just to help out with that cost reduction. And then you want to switch Bastion to Sustained by... no, Pain's Refuge. So reduce your damage taken by 2% for every 2 negative effects you have on you. That's just overall going to increase your defense. And since we are wearing light armor, we want to have as much damage mitigation as possible. And then Boundless Vitality, max health, super important. The more health you have, the better survivability you have. Green Tree doesn't matter, but if you wanted to see what I'm running, Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, Gifted Rider, and Steed's Blessing. Alright guys, that is the build in a nutshell. Sorry if this video is longer than intended. Definitely a lot of fun. Let this sink in. Honestly, as Halloween continues throughout the day, this is a perfect build to release. I figured why not raise the dead on one of my favorite days of the year. Try this build out. Let me know what you think. What would you do differently? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Let me know in the comment section. If you did like this video, give it a like and smash that subscribe button. Be sure to join the Graveyard if you are on Xbox NA. We are always taking applicants. We love to see the Graveyard community grow. We're very active on the Discord page too, so if you're interested in joining my server, definitely click that link that's in the top of my YouTube channel. Join the Graveyard. Become one of the Army of the Dead. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Stay frosty, and welcome to the Graveyard.